I'll tell a story that I've wanted to share for some time. I was born and I grew up in a small rural town in Eastern Europe, literally in the middle of nowhere. Just fields for kilometers in all directions. This story was told to me by a taxi driver who was reluctant to drive my drunk ass home late at night. During the drive, he told me this story. Be taxi guy. Sunday night, middle of spring, driving some girl to my bumfuck nowhere town. 2 a.m.-ish. Drop her off. Watch her safely enter her apartment building. Begin looking up the way back on GPS. 1.5 hour drive back to the nearest city. No radio. Look outside. Streets absolutely barren. Just dogs barking and crickets. Highway also empty. Occasional truck or speeding retard. Drive out on the highway. About half an hour into the drive. A little bit on edge and tired. Rabbit runs out into the road. What the fuck? Neat. Slow down a bit as to not hit the little guy. Rabbit speeds up. From the bushes, something emerges, chasing the rabbit into the car lights. Huge fucking hairless ghoul dog. It looks a little like a naked anorexic man running on all fours. Looks like a shitty chihuahua, but the size of a hunter breed. Fucking El Chupacabra, what the fuck? Get spooked. Start driving faster. Rabbit strafes into the grass. Dog slows down and turns its head towards the car. Get chills on arms. Dog's eyes look really weird and sunken in. Kinda like those pics of a T-Rex from the front. Drive past the weird crackhead dog. Driving 60 kilometers an hour. Listening to radio, trying to calm down. Get bad feeling. Something moving in peripheral vision. Looks to the right. The fucking dog is running parallel to the car. While running, it fucking turns its head towards him. Taxi guy audibly yelps. White knuckle the steering wheel. Dog eventually disappears. Make it back to civilization. Fucking shook. Be me. Be 7 years old. Be sleeping in top bunk of bunk bed. Have to piss. Wake up and roll over to hop out of bed. See disembodied demonic head floating next to bed staring at me. Quickly lay back down. Forget to pee. Face is gone. Same thing happened another time, but it was an angel in my doorway. So I saw an angel and a demon in the same room. Had a dream last night that there was a large base on the side of the moon that faces away from us. And there were similar, smaller facilities throughout the solar system on other satellites. I saw one such facility where a person was being removed from a room, possibly dead, and a new person being brought in to replace them. The idea was that these people were mercilessly tortured. In someone's words, I don't know who was speaking, specifically, they were trying to get them to scream so much that they destroyed their own vocal cords. It didn't make any sense why they had to do this in space, though. I lived in an old building from the 60s up until 5 years ago. The building was old, and my apartment had been abandoned for 10 years, until we moved in. It had lots of stories about ghost girls playing ball, and weird voices being heard and stuff. This happened about 8 years ago. I had moved to a bigger bedroom because my brother moved to another city for college, and I took his room, across the hall where my old bedroom was. Months later, some new neighbors moved to the apartment above mine. They were a family of 4, mom, dad, and 2 teen boys. They were a very violent family. Almost every single day they screamed at each other, and there was a big deal of physical violence involved. Hitting, throwing objects, pushing, and so on. It was dreadful. The police came in several times, but, as usual, nothing changed. Everyone in the building was scared that they might turn up dead one morning. That's how bad it was. Anyway, they had been living in the apartment above mine for around 2, maybe 3 months, when one night, I went to bed late. I was tired, and I closed my door so my cat couldn't come in at night and wake me up. I really don't know what time it was. All I know is everything was silent and dark. In those days, I was undergoing constant episodes of sleep paralysis. So I developed my own system to stop the horrible episodes before they began. I still use that method, and fortunately, After years of meditation, I haven't had an episode in at least a year. Well, that night, I began hearing the horrible ringing noise that alerted me of my sleep paralysis. So, I forced myself to wake up. It was very difficult, but I finally succeeded. It was around 2:30 a.m. I constantly woke up around that time. I thought you said you didn't know what time it was. Oh well. This was long before I even knew that, in Japan, the witching hour is between 2 and 3 a.m. To avoid falling asleep again, I turned on the lights and got up, so I could walk a bit in my bedroom. I grabbed a book, read for a while, and felt sleepy again around 4. I decided to give it a try. If I felt another episode coming, I would just wake up. I went back to bed and fell asleep. A while later, I don't know how long, I woke up feeling hair in my face. It was a very uncomfortable feeling, and I assumed it was my own hair. But when I tried to grab it to move it aside, I realized it was not my hair. I must say I was not fully awake, but I wasn't asleep either. I could move, but the ringing was beginning to sound in my ears. As I said, I realized it was not my hair, because it was very messy, and I wore mine in a braid, so there was no chance it was mine. I opened my eyes. There was nothing. I was too scared to even try to turn on the lights, and I instinctively began praying. I looked again, and to my dismay, in the corner, I very briefly saw a woman crouching in the ceiling. Yes, she was upside down, looking at me. Her hair was long and messy and dark, and she wore a white gown. No, don't think about Japanese movies. She looked more like a Mexican native, with a very dirty and worn cotton gown, and she was holding a baby, or it looked like a baby. It was seriously scary because I was sure it was not human. It had never been human. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. I closed my eyes, but I could feel her staring at me. I had never encountered something so awful, so dark. I simply did what I knew best. Cast a circle. I am a pagan, in case you wonder. I called the elementals, I called the gods, and I begged them to help me keep that thing away. And the damn thing didn't leave. I prayed harder, visualizing the bubble of golden energy around me, growing bigger. I was absolutely terrified. And then, when I was beginning to think that that horrible thing was going to be my new roommate, I felt kitty paws walking in my bed. The cat lied down next to me, and I felt its warm weight cuddle. I could almost feel the woman, or whatever, growl angrily, and then she vanished, just like that. I thought, well, my cat has saved me, but then I remembered I closed the door, and there was no way my cat was with me. I closed my eyes tight, still terrified, but the truth is, that warm, cuddly presence was actually comforting. I finally fell asleep after a while. Next morning, my door was closed and there was no cat inside the room. I asked my parents if they had opened my door after I went to bed, and both of them said they hadn't. Curious thing is that, from that day on, I constantly saw a cat-shaped shadow in the living room. I can sometimes see how spirits look like. That's how I know how the woman looked like. I know it was a black and very big cat. It liked to sit on the top of the back of the grandfather chair that we had. It played with my cat, and I think my cat actually liked them very much. The weird, horrible woman never appeared again, but I think she was called by the violence and hatred that my neighbors generated. I'm not sure if it was a demon, a poltergeist, or just negative energy that I interpreted as a woman. All I know is that all the activity in the house, voices, doors opening and closing, shadow people, had stopped, except for the cat. I used to thank him for his help almost every day, and I would leave him cat food and toys sometimes. I never got a name from him, and I never tried to give him one. Even my mom, the skeptic, who I think is just a witch in denial, admitted that she saw the cat once in a while. And one day, the black kitty just left. I think his job was done. I am convinced that that cat was some sort of guardian, that the gods had sent us to keep us protected from that inhuman horror. I have my own ideas on why it came to me as a cat, and I am sure that if I need him again, all I need to do is call. So, that's my story. I know how crazy it sounds. It's up to you to believe it or not, but all I can say is it was real. Too real. I still feel nervous when I remember that evil thing because I genuinely felt in danger, and I pray to all the gods that I never encounter something like that again. 5 years ago, we sold the apartment we lived in. We moved to my aunt's house while we finished building our new home. My aunt's house belonged to my grandmother, and it was built around the 50s, in an area that used to be completely deserted before. The area was very different to where I used to live. I really didn't like it much, but my aunt was very kind by letting us stay with her in the meantime. The house had reports of activity, but it was the usual stuff. We are a weird family. My aunt used to be very good at reading Spanish cards. My mom had premonitory dreams. A cousin of mine is sort of a medium. And in general, all my aunts and female cousins see shadows on a regular basis. Yeah, that's because how fucking light works, stupid. But nothing nasty or dangerous. So, at that time, things were going badly for everyone. I was undergoing a lot of job-related stress that caused me migraines. My parents were having constant money arguments, and my aunt was going through some sad personal stuff, so evidently, the atmosphere was absolutely dreadful. We all tried our best to avoid trouble, but it was a bit hard. One of those nights, I was asleep and suddenly, I began hearing the horrible ringing noise that alerts me of sleep paralysis. I knew I was just about to have an episode, and I tried to wake up. It was hard, and when I woke up, I moved to lie on my left side, but the ringing came back. I tried to wake up again, but I only managed to move a bit. Suddenly, I felt someone sit next to me, and I thought that the only person that would sit next to me is my mom, but why the hell would she do that in the middle of the night? It made no sense. I moved again, slightly, and woke up a little more, but the ringing didn't go away. I then felt this person lie down next to me. She, or it felt female, hugged me and began caressing my hair very softly, and I was like, what the hell? I couldn't move anymore, and the ringing in my ears was louder. I got angry. Whoever it was had no right to invade my personal space like that, and I formulated in my mind, very clearly, go away, do not touch me. And this was when things became weirder. She held me tighter, and her touch became possessive. I got the impression that she whispered something like, my girl. I concentrated again, thinking, go away, you are not my mom, and you have no right to touch me. I am not your daughter. The thing got angry, and didn't seem to want to leave. I felt her nails in my arms, and I began to freak out. I got the sensation that if I didn't defend myself, I was going to be stuck with her forever. So, I began repeating in my mind something I really can't remember, but I'm sure it was some sort of prayer. I felt this thing release me, angrily. I kept repeating the same words over and over again, and the thing finally left. I have no idea what it was. My grandma had died a few years ago, and her wake was held in this house, but it didn't feel like her. No one died there, and the thing was not part of the inhabitants of the house. It just came in and left after I made clear that I was not her daughter. Of my 3 really horrifying experiences, I don't know which one was the worst. All I can say that I know were that the 3 things were not human, and that's why it was so scary. I really never want to encounter crap like that ever again, but at least, I think I am a bit more prepared now than back then. Fortunately, I have only had 3 horrible experiences. The rest of them are quite light compared to these, and some of them are even humorous. What was the creepiest thing you've ever seen while just out for a normal walk? I saw a man shapeshift into a kid. He had an Afghan scarf made out of smoke, while he was morphing and had a drag of a cigarette while he was doing so. My eyes felt like my cones got pulled on while looking at him. I was sober, but I have a history of psychosis and schizophrenia. I was walking outside and saw a girl on the other sidewalk coming the opposite direction. A tall, blonde, white girl. I look at her and feel like I know her, almost to the point of saying hello or something, but I say nothing because I had that doubt. She passes me, and I just turn around to look one more time, because I'm pretty sure I know her. When I turned around, I saw a different girl. She was now a short brunette. Nothing crazy, but still weird. Genuinely once saw a woman in a red dress running down the street before suddenly disappearing behind a passing car. It was a hallucination. I also once saw a prowler at night trying to get into someone's window. And also, on a different occasion, I saw this junkie running across the street carrying a bag of something. But their leg movement was way off, and she was moving way too fast. And it looked like some kind of cryptid wearing a person suit. This was as creepy as it was funny. One time, after a night shift, I was out at 2 a.m. and saw a guy in a leather jacket, acting like some kind of vampire chicken. He was squatting and waddling around a couple of parking lot bushes, and kept hissing. I walked up to him, but he elongated his face and hissed in my direction, but just kept waddling in circles around the bushes, like it didn't faze him that I was there. Today, I was walking my dog when we crossed paths with an older man, maybe in his 50s or 60s. He bent down and petted her and asked me, "Is this a real dog?" I wasn't sure what he meant, so I just said, "Yeah." It was weird and unsettling. Lived in middle of bumfuck nowhere growing up. One day, some flashy white car drives by me slowly. The window winds down and there's some Roy Orbison looking motherfucker with some other suited men in the car. The guy grins, and his mouth was filled with long needle-like teeth. I ran for my life. I'm pretty sure I saw a fucking demon. A guy I know had a similar story. Lived in upstate New York in the 70s, on a farm in Amish country, aka middle of nowhere. He was out with his cousin at the end of his long driveway by the road, which was far from the house. A big white car drove by really slowly, and the driver reached out and was grabbing at the cousin. He picked him up by the shirt, but he didn't take him. He kept driving, and he swears he saw the guy's head turn a total 180 degrees to look back at him with a big smile. I swear, I experienced a Dante's Hell moment some years ago. I was in downtown LA and I was trying to meet up with a friend at one of those spiffy, gentrified bars in a prolapsed asshole part of town. I crossed one street, saw a dead chihuahua from the looks of it near the curb. I cross another street, and I see a youngish girl, white, probably in her 30s, with only one eye, literally smoking a glass crack pipe on the steps of a shutdown business. I cross another, and there's a smaller building I have to go around, and it was a church, I think. All the iconography was around, but all the people out front looked like serial killers, and the music coming from within didn't really sound like gospel. More like weird classical that was warped. Anyway, nothing happened to me thankfully, but it was such a weird fever dream experience. Walking around the block. Oh no, ambulance. They're wheeling out an old lady granny. She sits up, slowly, and points at me. I guess I'm cursed. Not exactly a walk, but one night, I was taking some shit out to my car, and while I was putting stuff in the passenger seat, I felt like I was being watched, and I looked up and a dude dressed like Johnny Cash, black jean pants and jacket combo with some slick black hair, was leaning against the car, and I got startled. And he just goes, "Boo." I laughed nervously and threw the rest of the stuff in my car. And as I was closing the door, I said, "Yeah, you got me pretty good." And when I looked up, he was gone. I looked around for him and looked to the left, and then, when I looked to the right, I saw a black dog running down the street, away from me. Never really told anyone about this. Maybe it's nothing, but I've always remembered it and the gut feeling I had, so I might as well. Around 2018, fly back from vacation and meet up with girlfriend at the time, driving us around somewhere in town. I can't remember where. Stopped to get gas. As I'm pulling out of the gas station, I hear or feel heavy bass. It's another car pulling up. Some beat up racer. Like, really beat up. With a smashed out window and covered in crude graffiti. As I pull out, I make eye contact with the passenger. It's a fucking clown. Not like a juggalo clown. Just a guy with makeup, a green wig, and a nose. He's got a mean-ass face, dragging on a cigarette. We both continue to stare at each other, and he was definitely mean-mugging me. I just wanted to know who, or what, this clown was. I remembered shortly after about the clown sightings of people committing crimes not too long before then. I have known and been around criminals and tough guys throughout my whole life, but no one has ever given me the same dark energies that this guy was emitting, which is the only reason I find it noteworthy. Not really a walk. Every story starts like that. But this happened 2 weeks ago, and I have no idea what to make of it. Be me, Florida anon, relaxing in chairs with friend outside of his trailer. We're sober, maybe 2 p.m. No clouds, perfect weather. On the ground between us, which was empty the entire time I was there, we both hear and see an explosion. The best way to describe it is that, for one frame, a clear glass bottle exploded. There was no bottle there before, nowhere it could have come from, and nobody within sight that could have thrown it. I then heard the sound of shattered glass hitting the metal siding of the trailer, and I felt some bounce off of my jeans. But one frame later, there was nothing. No sound, no glass, or any hint that anything had been there. We spent probably 2 hours on our hands and knees, looking for something as small as a single piece of glass, or a bottle cap. Just a scrape on the ground or anything. We never find so much as a grain of sand. The dust on the ground where it was had been somehow completely undisturbed. Think of that super dry dust that's a grain size, even finer than a flower. As little as stepping in it once makes a small cloud, and you can see the wind even move it. Not one rivulet, indentation, line, or scrape disturbing any of the dirt within 5 feet around it. The best way to describe how the bottle looked for that fraction of a second was a glass Coca-Cola bottle with no label, narrow at the neck and fluted, like 1960s Coke bottles, without a label or a cap. What the fuck do you even do with a story like that? I struggled to even come up with a schizoid explanation. No idea, even cartoonishly weird ideas. I should note that I was looking at the area that it happened at when it did explode. My friend didn't get a great look at it, but I saw it perfectly. I live near a university campus that I walk around a lot at night, and there is one night that scared the shit out of me. 9 p.m. Walking around university and going into random buildings. Very few people around because summer. Decide to fuck off back home through a park. Nobody in the park. No cars anywhere near the park or in any driveway. Entire neighborhood completely empty. 10 minutes of walking pass, and a car starts driving up the road. Car pulls up right next to me and stops. Guy in car stares at me and doesn't say a word. I start walking faster and get onto the road perpendicular to my house. Car at stop sign slows when turning. Old ass woman rolls down her window and waves at me. I have never seen this person before. I look down and I book it for my house. I get in as fast as possible and I lock the door. I couldn't sleep that night. This has never happened to me since. No events were happening around here, and typically, there are a lot of cars driving on those roads as they lead to the closest grocery store. The town I grew up in has a river running through it, and on one side of the river is a paved bike trail, and on the other side is an unpaved utilities road. I used to wander on the unpaved side and explore the abandoned buildings. One day, as a young lad of maybe 11 years old, I was exploring back there and found a trail leading off from a derelict brick building into the woods. I followed it for about 50 yards and decided to climb a small tree to see if I could see anything. I saw a man in flannel and a beard walking slowly down the trail, coming out of the woods maybe 50 yards away. I said, "Hey there," from out of the tree, but he didn't respond. I tried to wave, but he didn't wave back. I decided to get out of the tree and run, rather than wait and see if he wanted to rape, torture, or murder me. I sprinted out of there, and knowing the way to the paved road, I scrambled up a hill. I slowed down to catch my breath, and heard footsteps not far from my position. So, I kept running until I got to the road. I never went back there alone. Not exactly to me, and while taking a walk, but it happened recently, and it's been bugging me. Normal night. Dream of being with my friends after drinking at night. Weird, since my dreams are usually full of fantasy or creepy nonsense. A week later, meet with my friends again. They tell me that one of them was freaking out that night, that I had that dream. They say that he was hallucinating, that I was there with them. We all joke that he was too drunk and needs to stop drinking. I don't tell my friends about my dream because they'll just think I'm messing around. Something similar happened to me with my best friend. I can't remember how my dream started, but I remember being in my bedroom talking to him, and suddenly he says, "Anon, there's an angel in your room." I wake up to a flash of light in my room and I can't move. My back's towards the light, but it's so bright that I'm almost blinded. When I can finally move, it's gone. The next day, I call my best friend and tell him that I had a weird dream, and before I can even say anything about it, he tells me that he dreamed that he was transported to my room, and for a while we were just talking. All of a sudden, he realizes that there's an angel in my room and says, "Anon, there's an angel in your room." He woke up as well, but there was nothing where he was. He was over an hour away from my house at my old college campus when this happened. I wasn't freaked out when it happened, but I do remember feeling such a rush of energy when the light flashed into my room. It was a mixture of awe and fear. Be me. About 8 to 9-ish years ago, a buddy and I were walking down a road. Head straight, it's a dead end, and the only way out of the neighborhood was to take a right because the whole hood is pretty much encapsulated by a river. Start hearing flip-flops run fast in front of us. This area is mostly rural with very few streetlights. My buddy and I lived in the area since childhood, and we knew this street intimately. So, there was nowhere for this person to run unless they hopped like a 6-foot wire fence and brush on top of it, making it damn near 7 feet tall, with motherfucking flip-flops. Just weird as fuck. We don't know where this person went. I wasn't walking, but I was driving in my neighborhood really early in the morning, while the sun was still down, when I came across this intersection behind my house. There was this guy standing at the end of the driveway at the house behind mine. He was standing with his back facing me, and he didn't move a muscle either, despite my headlights clearly shining on him. It was almost like a doll or a dummy because of how still he was. He didn't look real, if that makes sense. I didn't want to get involved in whatever he was doing, so I turned and drove off. It wasn't a very long interaction either, so I couldn't really get a good look at him. It wouldn't have been as scary, except for the fact that it was so close to my house. Never saw him or had any similar interaction since, but it still gives me chills thinking about it. This one belongs to a sibling of mine. On a walk with Dad. Short walk, just around the block in the nice suburban neighborhood. At the mailbox because, why not? Suddenly, hear loud flip-flop walking. Look around for who it could be. Nobody's there. Dad hears it too. Footstep sounds come right between us, and then keep going past us. Stand there until we can't hear them anymore. Walking at night. Stop by overpass to smoke joint. Smoking joint. Drop roach on the street as I leave. Woman appears where I had been standing at the overpass. She's picking up my roach and smoking it. Kinda strange, but whatever. She's following me now. Turn a corner. No more woman. I don't see her walk down the street that I was on. Area with some trees. Flapping and rustling. Screeching. Oh, what the fuck, that gif? Walk home quickly. Possible shapeshifter? The fuck does it even mean? This wasn't outside, and I don't normally browse X, but this has been bothering me for a while now. This was the closest thing I could find to a general encounter thread. A little over a month ago, wake up from short midday nap. Floating above me is a slightly translucent blonde guy. Make eye contact. He raises his hand in greetings and says, "Yo." Starting from the bottom, he begins to dissipate. His "yo" goes away as he fully disappears. The whole thing took about 20 seconds, and I'm fairly sure it wasn't some residue from my dream. Any idea what I saw? I was walking to the convenience store once when I lived in Los Angeles. We lived in this apartment block, and there was an Arab store on the corner. We used to go down there and get chips and soda, and candy, cigarettes, whatever. One night, I was walking back home from the store, and I had a bag full of snacks cause a game just came out. I think it was a World of Warcraft Big Expansions. I saw this fucking homeless lady, and she was really, really high on something. She was talking to herself and mumbling something. She was sitting up against a brick wall in the corner, with her sleeping bag and Walmart bags of garbage and shit. All of the fucking sudden, she starts getting up and crawling up the side of the fucking wall, backwards. She made it like 4 or 5 feet up the wall before she fell down onto her shit. And then she started hitting herself in the face. I never ran so fucking fast in my own goddamn life. I saw a spooky ghost. Jesus Christ, Anon. You can't just post something scary like that.